operational executive role, taking that company through the acquisition and mergers over about a 18-month period, and then in a full operational role up until December last year, when I get to come to the States and hang out with so many of the people that I enjoy, and friends like you, Alex, and also Dan on the call. So that's a little bit about me. I've made plenty of mistakes. Alex and, in fact, all my friends and I joke all the time that if we were going to share all our mistakes, this would be an extremely long call, you know, maybe a month or two in duration, listening to all our mistakes. But what we can do is take the learnings that we've had making those mistakes and the collaboration we've done together, and we can share you some of the kind of distilled learnings that we've had, the observations, and we can share them on the call today. And I just love helping others be successful, Alex. That's the long short of it, and I'm having great fun doing that this year in the US.
Absolutely. And you know, Tim, what's cool, Dan, you'll agree that mistakes, man, that's part of our teachings here at Chartech. Sometimes we may not have the right answer for you, but we can tell you the 3 mistakes we made trying to get there, and we can at least guide you down a different road and not those 3 roads we already took that cost us thousands and thousands of dollars and lost time and employees and everything else, right?
Exactly.
Dan, tell me a little bit about yourself.
Well, you know, I've been with ConnectSMART and with the Connections for Business, our MSP, similar to ARC, down in sunny South Florida for almost 17 years. And about, I don't know, maybe 7 or 8 years ago, we kind of bought into this whole managed services idea and really started changing our business into the managed services, and found that we were really missing some tools. And so we found, you know, what we felt was the best platform on the market for us to work in, and became a ConnectWise partner. And there was just a little bit more that we needed, and so for us, we started building our dashboarding tool all around really metrics and KPIs, and that's really what we're going to be digging in today. So kind of became my passion, and has become a shared passion with some of my friends in the industry like you guys.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know what's funny, Dan, is, and I don't know if it's funny, it's just what's so cool is your product was built off of a need that you needed for your own MSP. And that's where you see more of the successful partners in our channel, is because it was an idea, the product was built because of a need of doing exactly what we're doing now. You know what I mean?
Finding all those ways to do it wrong.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Chartech was, and our Haas model and our training and everything else was basically built because of something we needed at ARC. Look at ConnectWise. Look at LabTech. Look at ConnectSMART. I mean, there's so many, Zoom Connect. All these great companies out there built something based on their own MSP, and that's what really validates what we're teaching here. Is it's just not this idea that we think will work. You know, this is what we do, and this is how we do it. So hey guys, let's get on with this. And let me see here. Am I going to? Let's see here. I need to turn this over to somebody to take control of it. Can you do that, Emily?
Yeah, you can pass. While you guys do that and pass it over to me, I'm happy you do the slides, or I can do the slides, either way. We're pretty cool. But I'm going to kind of hit a couple of high-level points around why KPIs fail. And as Alex talked about, I've just had such a blast this year. I've been so fortunate to take a year out, post all of my managed services adventures, and basically hang out with friends in industry. I've done a little consulting, a little bit of speaking. I've got to talk to a ton of different people, and it's just been an incredible year of learning and observation and building for me. And so I'm going to share some of those observations today, particularly around KPIs. And a lot of those were originally formed working with buddies in industry like Dan, who were super passionate about KPIs as we went through that journey I told you about before out there in Australia. And I relied very, very heavily on, as Alex does, you know, I actually am a pretty simple kind of guy with a terrible memory. But I got some great friends that have taught me a whole lot, and I'm just kind of take it simple and work diligently to implement that in the business, and it's had some fantastic results. So I'm going to share a little bit about what I've observed around KPIs this year as I've been traveling and learning and off others. So I don't know if I got screen control now, guys?
Yeah, give it a shot.
Yeah, fantastic, excellent. There's a couple of interesting projects that I will mention that have some relevance. I've been doing consulting with managed service companies, but also with some of the channel vendors that sit out in the channel. I've done a really exciting project with ConnectWise around best practices, and I'm excited to see what ConnectWise has got in store at IT Nation coming up. I know a ton of you on the call will be there. I'm also working with another company in San Francisco called Dropbox, and it's working in that software space, consumer, and they're moving now to business software as well, helping them set up the channel program, working with Alex on that. I know Alex, you're doing a lot of their training. Has also been super exciting, learned a ton of stuff. There's another project that's close to my heart. We're going to have something special that me and Dan will talk about later in the session today. That's a product called Desk Director, and it's again grown out of an MSP that had a need, had a challenge around customer service, and they basically bought creating amazing customer service experiences right alongside what we do with KPIs. I'm going to share a little bit about how working across the industry, but specifically with ConnectSMART about that at the end of the call. So I'm going to jump straight into it, and I love statistics, and I've been traveling all across the US, and what I've noticed is that I am unique compared to most people in the US, and I'm different. I'm different in a lot of different ways, the way I speak, the way I drive on the road. For those of you who are not aware, I drive on the left side of the road naturally, and it's a challenge constantly having to think that people get very upset with me if I drive on that side of the road here in the US. They want me to drive on the right side of the road, because that's the right side here in the US, right? It's got some challenges. But we hired just a couple of weeks ago, I've been on vacation, and a dream for my wife was to drive an RV kind of truck, bus, camper, home thing. It's like a boat on wheels from one side of the US to the other. And we started 2 weeks ago in Florida, and day after day we've been progressing right across this magnificent country of the USA. Apart from a small governmental shutdown, which prevented us visiting a few places, it was just a fantastic trip. But I noticed something as I was going, and we're going to talk about fingers and the usefulness of fingers. And when we're just like I'm different being here in the US people are different all across the place in the way they do life and even their language here in the US. And I noticed something about the fingers, and when I was in the Midwest, out there in Springfield, Missouri, and Nashville, and kind of up that central corridor of the US, everyone's really friendly, but they weren't like waving friendly. They just kind of lift their finger on the steering wheel. Alex, have you ever seen this? Do you do this out in Bakersfield, where you're driving along on the open highway, and I'm kind of a bit of a trucker with my trucker hat on, driving my RV, listening to country music because it's all you can get out there. And I have to lift my finger. If I don't lift my finger, it's like it's rude if I don't kind of lift that index finger and just, I don't know, it's some kind of acknowledgement or hello or whatever. So it's pretty interesting.
Funny. You make eye contact, you lift the finger up, and they just kind of give you a nod, and you just had this little 30 millisecond connection with somebody you'll never see again the rest of your life.
Right? And that's different. I mean, we don't do that in Perth, Australia, and I definitely didn't notice that in Tampa Bay, but it was cool, and that connection was good, but they definitely used their index finger a huge amount. And then another place I'd love to visit, but I haven't been there yet, and that's Hawaii. And I've got a friend, actually, Chris Weiser. I'm going to give him a shout out on the call. He's not going to be on the call because he's off in Hawaii getting married, so congratulations, Chris. If you know him, shoot him an email, tell him I said thanks. And we're just stoked that he got married, and it's just such a huge stage in life. But in Hawaii, they use that thumb and that pinky finger all the time, and that suits me just good. I'm a bit of a surfer at heart, and I love my surfing, and this is probably my most useful fingers as well, the thumb and the pinky, and they're always doing that. I don't even know, is that called something, Alex? That
yeah, hang loose, right?
Or hang loose, right? Yeah. Hang loose. So they get those two fingers. But, you know, when I first came to America, my very first experience in the US was in LA. I flew into LAX from Australia. It's a very long flight, so I was sleep deprived. It was the very first time I had driven on the wrong side, being the right side of the road, very confusing. And I hopped out, and there was a few people that didn't like the way I drove. And what I discovered in LA is completely different to the Midwest. So they've got that middle finger. They're using that thing all the time. So some
you know, it's funny. What's funny, Tim, is that was kind of the elephant in the room here for the last minute and a half. I'm sitting here going, okay, I wonder when we're going to chat about that whole middle finger.
Yeah, right. Well, in LA, you don't use the index. I mean, if you use the index finger, I'm afraid they'll think I'm using the middle finger because that's the only finger they seem to use, and they use the horn a lot as well. They're in New York. They're just on the horn the whole time, but I didn't hear anyone honk their horn the whole way across the US. And so we're all a little bit different. But KPIs help us work out, even though you've got all these different people in your organization, you need to help them understand what they're doing and help them effectively use KPIs. So let's get into where I see KPIs fail. So, and I've been able to go into a lot of organizations that are doing a lot of things with KPIs or metrics. And you know what? The funny thing is, even though they're doing spend hundreds and hundreds of hours developing their metrics, they're not actually getting anything out of it. And it was a real shame for some of the places that I get to visit and talk with people. I'm going, Tim, I've got all these KPIs, and they just don't seem to be making a difference. And so I'm going to kind of flatten it out and KPIs and say this to kind of caveat the things I see that aren't working. KPIs are only as good as the daily behavior they drive. And if your KPIs and your incentive plans around those KPIs aren't modifying daily behavior, then you're actually not going to get any weekly, monthly, annual behavior. So it's probably better having no KPIs at all and not waste your time if you've not got that right. And these are some of the things from study and from observation that I've seen. So firstly, point one is people make KPIs too complex. And I remember going into a great client actually of mine, and we're talking about his engineering incentive scheme. He had an incentive scheme for his engineers. He had a particular KPI, and it was a ratio number, and it took him almost an hour to explain to me how that number was calculated. It was extremely complex. In fact, I joked with him and said, hey, did you used to have a physicist or a NASA scientist on your team to come up with this? Because this thing is mind-boggling. And what happened is no one understood where that number came from. And as a result, the behavior, that daily behavior you need to see happen as a result of the KPIs didn't come. And it was actually an ineffective KPI. They've changed it up. They've changed it around. They're seeing some great results now as a result of that shift. So the next thing is people come up with a KPI, and I see them on the wall. I always ask the question when I visit managed service companies. It's such a good privilege to do that. I say, hey, that KPI, number of tickets, let's say there's 1,000 tickets there or 100 tickets, what number is good? And they failed to actually identify what was good. So they're measuring a ton of stuff, but actually is making no difference because no one knows what good is. They're just like, oh, wow, cool, 100 tickets. It's like measuring how heavy something is. Well, I'm X amount of pounds. Well, is that good? Is that weight good? Is that bad? Do I need to lose weight, gain weight, bulk up? It's right. Not good if you don't set that benchmark. And so the next
so
thing
funny,
I think,
Tim, is I have,
yeah, go.
It's so funny on that. I have so many MSPs, and Dan, I'm sure you're the same way. They come up to you and they'll say exactly that. They'll say, how many technicians should I have for however many desktops I'm supporting, or how many tickets should my guys be doing in a day, or how many whatever. I mean, and it's like, gosh, how do you give an answer? I can tell you what my guys do, but, it just all depends on what the tickets are, and it's like, gosh, it's just this unknown factor, right?
Yeah, it's probably my most common answer when people ask a question. It's kind of it's a joke around here. Is my answer is always, it depends. It depends on what the rest of your numbers are saying. It depends on the rest of your environment.
Yeah,
right, exactly.
That's a perfect point. So you got to set benchmarks. You got to have goals. If you don't have goals, you don't know where you're going. Again, no point having that KPI there. The other thing, and I'm going to jump around because I talked about being misunderstood or KPIs, people not understanding KPIs. I want to talk about complexity. I see people go, oh, look, we've got this great incentive program or great set of KPIs that we watch, and the list is long. I mean, it's 20, 30, 40 KPIs, and each staff member has to wrap their head around these 20 or 30 moving points of benchmark constantly. I can tell you right now it's too complex, which leads to my bottom point, so I'm going to bounce around a bit. And that is my general recommendation is you've got to just have a couple of KPIs, and we'll get to some of the recommendations, but people just end up with too many KPIs that are too complex, and it's just not going to make a difference. So you've got more information than you know what to do with, and just too much to look at when people have just got to get on and get their jobs done. And you just end up overwhelming them, and they just sit there in a state of overwhelmed view, and we've got to get out of that. We've got to clear that up. So the last thing is, two last things around why KPIs fail. is there's no link to incentives or controls. So they've got a KPI there, and they've either hidden it, so it's not up on the wall, it's not up on a dashboard, it's not, they never get to see it. So they only get to see it kind of at the end of the month or the end of the quarter. It's like, well, that's no good if they can't see what's going on a regular basis. And then linking that to some kind of incentive. That doesn't have to be financial incentive. It can be a light going off in the room. It can be shouting people who reach a certain benchmark at the end of the month. It can be a ton of different things, but it's really important to link your key KPIs to some kind of incentive or controls.
And Tim, real quick,
No,
Tim,
you jump in, man, jump in.
Yeah, on that, guys, this is where the whole motivators test comes into play with the DISC assessments. You guys, a lot of people have taken the DISC. Do you know there's that whole same test on motivating and what exactly motivates your people? What motivates you? For whatever reason, it's not always money, which blows me away. I mean, I'm motivated by money, but it isn't the same for everybody else. Sometimes it's time off. Sometimes it's education. Sometimes it's saving the world. There's a different motivator for everybody. And all the KPIs in the world don't mean anything if you don't really understand what motivates each individual person or the team. And that's very, very important. And you guys can take advantage of all that with Jason over here, our DISC certified guy over here. Just ask him. Talk to him about that stuff.
It's super important. And the last thing in that incentive is controls. Notice there should be gates in place. It's one thing to motivate people to do the right thing, but you also have to have controls in place. And if you guys are coming along to Academy, I do deep dive into some of that stuff in my Academy sessions. And then the last thing, and this is crazy, is I go in sometimes and say, hey, Tim, here's all my KPIs. They're showing me reports. We're doing really good. We're kind of optimized here and there. And everyone seems to be achieving all of their benchmark goals or all of their benchmark KPIs. But then I ask about the performance of the company, and the company's performing mediocre or only making a tiny bit of profit, or customers are still really upset and unhappy and CSAT's poor. I'm like, hang on a minute, how did we have stuff that was good for the team or KPIs that you set for the team all be achieved but still not be good for the company? And it's really, really important that when you're creating and designing and maturing your KPIs, which I'll talk about, you've got to get that aligned with what's good for the company. And you've got to have those two things linked up. Getting this out of whack kills the effectiveness of KPIs, and you've got KPIs for no sake. You end up just wasting your time, spinning your wheels with information that doesn't lead anywhere or mean anything for the team. So I thought I'd call out a couple of things that I've seen on a regular basis. It's by no means comprehensive, but it is stuff that we see creating problems all through the industry. So I hope that resonates with what you're seeing in your business, or if you're just full of pride and say, hey, I know a guy in an MSP and he's got one or two of those things going on in his business. Tim, how to solve that? So we're going to talk a little bit about KPIs. You guys got anything more to add before I change out the screen?
No, you're exactly right. It's all good stuff.
Awesome. Well, look, I'm going to talk this kind of two parts. Firstly, the maturity of your KPIs, and me and Dan will extrapolate that on a little bit. There's definitely different types of KPIs, and you need to make sure you've got a well-rounded view of what's going on in the business. So I'm going to talk about some of the key things that I focus on. And the first thing is volume. Now, it's not volume like a speaker, although that's the icon we used. It's volume in terms of, you know, do I have one ticket going through this process, 100 tickets, 1,000 tickets, 4,000 tickets? If it's talking about financial volumes, you know, is it $100,000, $1 million, $10,000? And it's important to understand across the stations within your business or across the processes that exist in your business, what volume is transacting through each of those stages. You can actually measure volumes from one end of your entire business cycle to the other. It tells you a lot about the business. It's not the only thing you should measure, and it's important, but it's a volume KPI, and you need to know when you're measuring volume versus velocity. Velocity is the time it takes to get between stations in your business. So, for example, SLAs are often velocity SLAs. So how long did it take for a ticket to come in to then go through and get completed? You can break that up into sub-areas and talk about the velocity of each stage a ticket plays. You can even talk about the velocity of a sales cycle. How long does it take from a lead to a conversion? How long does it take from a conversion to having the client paying us? How long does it take from the client paying us to have the cash, to so on and so forth. So working right through that process. So you've got volume, velocity, and the last one you've got is quality. See, look, well, we've got a certain amount of volume running through the pipe of our business. We've got a certain amount of velocity, the speed in which it runs through the pipe. But what about the quality? So if we take a garden hose, for example, it's like saying, hey, the bigger the garden hose I've got, the more volume can run through it. And that's important. But we also want to know how fast is that water moving, what the pressure of the water is moving. And just one little kink in that pipe can create a slowdown of your entire business system. And that's something when we talk about supply chain that we focus in on, about things stopping velocity. And the last thing is that quality. And well, look, it's great that you've got a huge amount of volume and a huge amount of velocity of tickets or invoices or projects or whatever it is, but if the quality is terrible, if it's stagnant, infected, terrible grey water running through that pipe, well, the velocity and volume aren't the only things you need to look at. So always try and break them up and look at the volume, the velocity, and the quality when it comes to KPIs. So a little just kind of bit of education when I look at a KPI, I always self-categorize those KPIs in my head, and I know me and Dan do that all the time when we're talking about what goes on.
Tim,
then once
so
you've
on that, Tim,
yeah,
real
you
quick,
go.
on that,
Jump in, man.
that, the volume, velocity, and quality, and Dan, I'm sure you can speak to this as well. It's funny, if you're only measuring the easiest thing that you can track, okay, the other two suffer. So it's volume, velocity, quality. Choose one. Right? Because
right.
It's so easy. It's easy to measure one, but then what happens is you keep measuring the one and you motivate on that one and you compensate or you praise on that one. The others go to hell.
Right. You have 100% satisfaction of, you have never, you've never gotten a bad score on a survey, but you're only able to do 2 tickets a day because it takes 4 hours to handle
right.
each ticket. So, you kind of laugh about it, but, it is that triangle. We were laughing about that last night.
Yeah.
It's not the choose one. You have to choose all 3 or your business will go under if you don't keep track of it.
Yeah, absolutely. But it's always easy to do one. It's so easy to do one. And where the trick is how do we blend all 3? So one, by focusing on one, it doesn't make the other suffer, and we know how to put, weight everything the certain way that you need to weight. That's where my failure was growing up with my business. I was like, oh,
absolutely.
Man.
Yeah, look, it's a fantastic point. I love your example. You focus on one and the others go to pot. And you know what? This is from a supply chain perspective across our industry. This is the biggest killer of growth. So people go, I just can't get the sales or whatever. Well, often I see people go through a phase where they get the sales, but because they're not diligently measuring each station within their business, each key activity within their business, they're not measuring these things, this triad of KPIs effectively. They actually stagnate their growth because they don't realize that they've got a huge kink in that hose. Or they don't realize that the quality's gone bad, and the quality flows all the way down the pipe. If you've got bad quality water funneling in one end or poor issues at one point in the pipe, everything downstream from that, everything through your business is affected by that quality. So a huge cost to your business if you don't get these right. And people tend not to focus on them and worry about other things and get all caught up being busy, but this is really, really key stuff. And I hope we boiled it down to its most important parts for people on the call today. So the other thing we see, and me and Dan were talking about this last night, it was a great collaboration actually, so this is not just my points. We talked about the fact that you start with, and just show one, we start with metrics, and a metric is just measuring something in your business. And that's an important thing to do, and as you start your business and start running, you start going, I need to measure this, and I need to measure that, and you kind of keep a notebook of all the things you'd like to be able to measure in your business. But just measuring everything isn't enough, and it's kind of the lowest maturity level when it comes to KPIs. So I'm measuring 150 things, Tim. What, is that good? I'm like, well, that's a start. Don't stop measuring them, but it's important that you kind of know what's going on. That's really just kind of stage one when it comes to maturity of metrics in your business or KPIs. And the second thing is go, okay, I've got these 150 KPIs across the business. What are the key metrics? What's the most important? I've got these 10 metrics for this one area of the business. What's the most important thing to measure of those 10? Because we just can't measure 10. Like I said, too much complexity. So we start identifying, hey, if I just track this one thing, I can tell if that area of the business is healthy. If I can just track this one aspect of service delivery, I can get a pretty good handle on whether or not we're going to go do good at the end of the month. I'm going to know that in advance. So key metrics. So you boil it down, you get more focused, you get you start worrying, no, that's not really important. That's not the most important metric this is. And that's a good sign, and that takes time. In my observation, it can take years to go through that process in each area of your business. Failing and erroring is very time-consuming, very expensive to go through and learn that. It's important. You will do it in time if you focus on it, but it's not something you just wake up one morning and get given a handbook of metrics like raising kids. You just, you're now running a business and you got to work this key metric thing out, else you'll be capped for your size and expansion for the rest of your business's life. In the last phase,
I think that's an important point that you mentioned there, is also with that example of your kids, right? It's, you could have the best experts in metrics in the world, and people who can do it day in and day out and put it all together in a book and give it to you. But it's just like your kids. None of those books work for your kids. They only give you aspects because every single kid is different. And every single business is different, and the makeup of the business is different, and the employees are different. What motivates them is different. So this isn't something, unfortunately, that you can just have handed to you on a silver platter. It is going to change over time. It's something that you really have to dig into for your own business to really make it work.
Yeah, look, that's the absolute truth. Alex?
Yeah, and what's funny is you're talking about, you can measure all these different KPIs and all this stuff. A mistake I made is exactly what you're saying. I went through and I measured all this stuff, and I'm sitting here on my desk. I spend weeks and weeks and weeks figuring all this stuff out, and then I got all this crap sitting on my desk with all these numbers. I don't even know what to do with them at that point. I'm just like, holy cow. So I shotgun over here, and I shotgun over there, and I work on this, and I just kind of run around with my head cut off, yelling and hooting and hollering at why things are down. So sometimes having all that information without a plan, it puts you farther behind and jacks your head up even more.
That's right.
Yeah, you just end up feeling overwhelmed, right? So the last one then, that large stage of it, so you've got these key metrics now, and then this is kind of the most, we call it the most kind of elite stage in metrics, and that's where you start building on top of these key metrics, exception metrics. And exception metrics in simple is where you take, look, we want to achieve this key metric because this key metric being at a certain benchmark equals health. And then you can take that and say what things or what attributes within the systems of our business need to not exist for that key metric to be at its greatest point. And we create exception metrics, and they're basically things that get to zero. And there's another really powerful trait around exception metrics. I'm going to use the simplest example of one I normally give about exceptions, and that is we had a dispatcher, so it was back in the day, we were growing very, very quickly, and we went from everyone just picking and choosing tickets to having a full-time service manager and dispatcher. And every day I'd come in and I'd check in ConnectWise, and we'd always have 10 or 15 tickets that had come in sitting on the service board that required scheduling. And I knew that if we got all those tickets scheduled by the end of every day, we would at least have responded to and booked the time of our team if we got through that. But every day, no matter what I did, we just couldn't get that to change. And so working with Dan, we got ConnectSMART up on the wall, and we actually pushed up on the wall the number of tickets that existed that needed scheduling. So it was an exception metric, because once you schedule all the tickets, the dashboard went to zero. And so me and the service manager worked together on it, got agreement on what our goal should be. And he said, well, look, it's pretty easy. I just, it gets lost in the system, and I don't know where I'm at, and then I'm busy off on a ticket, and I can never really tell exactly where I'm at, and then it's busy in the end of the day, and I go home, and without realizing that, we've got all these tickets that still needing scheduling. So we worked out the exception, put it on the wall, and it was amazing, because for days and days after that, this guy, we had a male scheduler, and his biggest thrill was cutting and pasting the dashboard off the wall, or taking a photo on his iPhone and sending it to everyone saying, hey, we've got no tickets that require me to action anything right now. And he could go be proactive and call clients and chat with, work with our service team on training and other things. And that was the coolest thing, working out exception metrics. And we ended up applying that theory of what's required to get your key metrics to the point that you need into exceptions right across the business, from invoicing all the way through to ticketing. And it was very, very powerful, very, very mature. From my perspective as a manager, I didn't run around anymore, as Alex talked about, with my head chopped off going, what's next, what's next? I could look and go, hey, there's no exceptions, things are looking pretty good, and then I would go and have a look at the key metrics, knowing that the two, I could just kind of keep working the two together to get the highest performance, the highest outcome we could as a team. It's fantastic. It also shares back to the team very actionable things required to get the key metrics up. So it brings a great relativity between the two. So bumping on into, what is it that you need to do? If there's just a handful of things, Tim, that I should focus on around my KPIs to drive success through best practice. Well, the first thing is, look, just keep your calculations or your KPIs simple and clear to understand. And it's pretty simple to do this. Take the KPI, explain it to a team member, and ask them to go fix whatever the KPI was standing for. And if they kind of don't really know where to go, it's too complex. It's too complex. The second thing is you've got to define good and set goals. And if you don't know what good is yet, then watch it for a week or a month and then set a target and see if you can reach that target. You don't have to just be 100% day one. None of us were like that. None of us are there yet. So go and define good and then trial it, test it out for a couple of months, and then keep reestablishing what good is as a benchmark on your KPIs.
And you know what, Tim, on that, you know what, real quick on that, and I've done this, and it's not just with KPIs, but let's just say quotas and commission as well. Sometimes, if you just take it upon yourself to decide what is good, because you have this idea that we need to be doing 10,000 tickets in a month, or we need to have this amount of response time, or we need to have this big a quota, and it's so far-fetched that it's not even possible, then your team is like, oh, what is it? This is ridiculous. There's no way in hell. And again, the mentality of why even try, because we can't even get half that amount of tickets. He's acting something crazy. So you know what I'm saying? So it's almost like
absolutely.
You're exactly right. Let's decide what is good, and you really pay attention to that. And before we just go ahead and splurt everything out to everybody of where they need to be and what they need to do, let's get some data behind it. Maybe let's look at the last 3 months. Let's measure things for the last quarter. What's acceptable? What's not acceptable? Dive down deep. Could we have done more? Were we at the top of our game? What was our efficiency like at this? What was our customer satisfaction or loyalty like at this point? And then set some expectations to where they're reachable with maybe a little bit of stretch levels as well, so they can see that there's a light at the end of the tunnel and not just this outlandish number that some mad dog CEO wants some unrealistic numbers. You know what I mean?
Right.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean,
Absolutely.
and they just reject the KPI and they don't follow after it. And it's a great segue into the point. You got to.
And they'll never say anything. They will never say anything. They don't want to say, "Oh, that's unreachable." They just, in their head, it's just a different mentality. They'll just go
so
on
they're going to go
Submarine it. Yeah. Just get submarined.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely. It gets torpedoed. So that's the next point. You got to explain clearly where the KPI comes from, how to improve that number, and get buy-in from the team, get agreement. And the great way to do that is to say, how many tickets do you think we can do in a month? How many tickets do we do if that's important? I mean, there's a lot of things in the business. I don't want to get bogged down on the simplicity of tickets, but it's really critical.
But getting buy-in, Tim, right there, getting buy-in. That's what nobody ever does. We're just these big old dictators. We sit back and we just tell them what they need and do this and do that, but it's getting the buy-in and then reevaluating it every quarter. Maybe we tweak it up. Maybe we tweak it down, whatever.
Yeah, well, look, I'm actually talking about that at the Next Academy. If you don't get buy-in, and see, I go into businesses all the time, and you see the guy that says this, Tim, if I'm not pedaling hard on the business, if I'm not on everyone's back, if I'm not pushing everyone slows down and performance drops off. That's not because necessarily of your team, it's because you never got buy-in in articulating clarity around what people needed to achieve. And you've got to get buy-in from your team. You've got to be clear about what they're doing. And KPIs is such a great platform to start experimenting around that and changing your leadership style from the person who has to constantly on the business to drive it to a business that self-motivates and self-breed momentum. And there's a lot of businesses out there, so if you're sitting in a business that is, you just say that same thing, man, I just have to be pushing. If I'm not pushing, everything backs off and we don't perform. That strategic logic within your business needs improvement. And the academies and other things are a great place to come. I want to note one other thing that I'll get to in a second, so I'm just kind of putting down that for note. You got a link in KPIs to incentives and controls. Pretty simple concept. They do a lot of stuff around this at Chartec, so it's a great place to find out more. You've got to have it good for the teams and good for the company. You've got to have it not just good for the company, not just good for the teams. You've got to have stuff that people can achieve, and when everyone achieves their KPIs, the company should succeed. And I often see a disparity or a gap between those two. And the last thing is keep it really simple. And just choose 3 KPIs. If you're issuing KPIs to someone and you're trying to guide their behavior in something that they do, if you give them more than 3 KPIs, they cannot manage more than 3 KPIs in their background thinking or in their subconscious thinking. And it comes right down to the thing I said right at the start. Good KPIs help change people's daily behavior. And if whatever you're doing is not, you need some assistance in getting that right, getting it down to the most simple and important KPIs that people understand, that you have buy-in from, so that daily behavior changes. Not just so that you succeed or make more money or whatever it is. It's so that everyone succeeds together. You want your team feeling a sense of achievement, a sense of success. You want the company to succeed. They want the company to succeed. It's a win-win for everyone if you get this stuff right. And it was an incredible journey. I didn't wake up one morning and all of a sudden just I wasn't naturally a mathematics genius or anything like that. Like I said, I'm a real simple guy. In fact, more than 3 things in my brain and something gives way. And, I have a very small capacity, for chewing through stuff. But what I did is relied really heavily on relationships in the industry. One of those relationships was Dan at ConnectSMART. And for years actually since Accord, so 3 or 4 company iterations ago from Anatel, we've been working with Dan on the ConnectSMART dashboards from the inception, from right in the days where they were manually coded up all the way through to now where they're super automated. And this was the thing for me when we were making that investment. Dan, through his learnings with all of the groups of clients that he has on board and people like Alex and the team, Shane at the team at ARC, they have most of this stuff comes straight out of the box, really well-defined KPIs. They have a lot of material on KPIs that they use. And we're super excited, both me personally as a consultant still refers plenty of people along that direction and other products in the industry. But further to that, I'm also involved, as I talked about, in Desdirect, and we're super excited about what they do because we're going to try and partner with them to break that from daily behavior change to, minute behavior change, bringing those KPIs right down to the engineer as they're doing their work. So I just wanted to hand across to Dan to share a little bit about the platform ConnectSMART and the importance of getting that really rich, relevant information up in front of the team so they can see what's going on, and leveraging the thousands and thousands of hours of work that they've done on the system that you don't have to do in your business, creating all your own KPIs, because they've already done the work for you. So Dan, I appreciate you having me along today, being able to share my heart and learnings and observations with the crew online. And it's great, man. I appreciate the friendship.
Well, I appreciate it very much myself. It was a great introduction, and I have to say, probably the things that I enjoy the most is when we have the chance to kind of sit down and start digging through some of these numbers, digging through some of these ideas, and with some of the industry greats like Alex and Tim, to really get our heads together and learn more. We learn more every single time. And so I did want to go ahead and give you folks an opportunity to take a look at ConnectSMART in context of what we've been talking about today. I'm not going to go through a demo and go through all that kind of stuff. You're welcome to, you can get a demo. We'll be happy to show that stuff to you later. But I did want to touch on a couple specific items. So one of the first things we're talking about on the KPI data is keeping it simple, that you've got to keep it simple. So I brought up this gadget, and this is an example of one of the KPI numbers that we had put together quite a while ago. And in the idea of keeping it simple, this is not it. I was very proud of this when we first did this. And when you take a look at it, you've got all kinds of things. There's a lot of information that's being told to you. I can see that I've got different people that have different goals. I can see a service manager has a different goal than another person. I have different types of utilization. I can see different minimals or minimum numbers. But at a glance, there's way too much information. And so I think it is very, very important to recognize that all metrics are not created equal. So just because we're seeing the same information, you can go through that same iteration. It's hard enough to find the right metric, but then when you find the right metric, now you've got to figure out how to present it. And so there's a whole lot that goes through that process of how do you present a metric. Now this example is actually presenting not only is it presenting the same information, but I'm presenting even more information than we had in the previous in that previous gadget. So now we're seeing their utilization for each individual against their goal, and it's also very, very clear. Did anybody guess if, is green good or is green bad? Do you want to be in the red or do you want to be in the green?
Right.
So,
and then it's almost, Dan, it's funny, it's almost if you think about it now, your service manager or whomever is like, hey, you green or red this week? Okay, cool, think green. I mean, it's easy to even push, right?
It's exactly right. And we added in an additional concept into ConnectSMART for tracking utilization, which is compliance time. And I know this has been a big deal that we've heard over and over and over with almost every single presentation that we've done is, hey guys, show of hands, how many of you have a problem with people putting their time in real time? And people say, oh, well, if I can get it done by the next week, or, I'm happy if we can get it in the same week. And, I say, okay, my engineers, I don't have that problem. That's not an issue. We do not have a problem with people putting their time in almost in real time. And the reason is because as we matured in our metrics and in how we did our own tracking, this number not only became as you were saying, Alex, are you in the green or are you in the red, but everybody knows that you're not eligible for our performance compensation for the quarter, which is typically $1,500 to $1,800 per person, if you're not green. So you can decide if you want to be green or not be green. And all you have to do is put your time in while you're going. So it makes it really, really simple.
Yeah. Hey, real quick, Dan, what's your take on displaying these for people to see successes of people and themselves, or failures of themselves or people? Does that motivate or demotivate some people?
Well, it really depends on how it's presented. And so much of it depends on the culture of the environment. If it's being done pejoratively, then it's a bad thing. I had a customer who called me up pretty upset that some of their folks are putting together a gadget, and one of the ones that we use is our most neglected ticket of the person who has the oldest ticket not being updated, and it has a little picture of a dunce cap, and the gentleman was upset about it, and so I said, oh, hold on just a minute, and I turned around to one of the dashboards behind me, and I took a picture with my cell phone, and I emailed it over to him, and I said, my name's up there right now. And so if you're included in the praise, and if you're doing something that's not correct, if the timesheets aren't submitted and my timesheet's not submitted, my name shows up there, I'm not exempting myself or any of our other people, then I think it's okay, as long as you're, again, not making it a negative thing. So it all depends on your culture.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, but it is something that you do have to be careful of, because that could definitely be a downward spiral of people pointing fingers, and you just kind of play with it and learn as you go.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I mean, I've always had it to where, people don't want to see themselves failing. Nobody likes to fail, so if they're seeing it, maybe it's one more motivator, but at the same time, maybe it might motivate somebody to get the hell out of your company too.
If they have the ability to do something about it, then I have no problem putting their name on it. So like our utilization, it's not based on salespeople selling new jobs. We're in a managed service practice. That's based on putting your time in as you're going and actually working approximately 7 hours a day. If you can work 7 hours a day and put your time in, there's zero excuse. So I have no problem calling you out if your name is, in a place where it shouldn't be. So this is a couple examples. We were talking about looking at your numbers and refining your metrics, and this is a combination of a metric that we look at, KPI, as well as a couple of exceptions. And it really goes into defining them where everybody understands. And one of the things that we've seen so many times where I believe people have made a mistake is they get a dashboard, they get ConnectSMART, and they say, oh man, we've got 160 things to choose from, and they put all these different gadgets together, and they throw them all together up on a screen, but they haven't trained to them, they haven't taught to them, and as Tim was saying earlier, nobody understands what they even are. And so for us, it's really important to always get it down to, we try to have a one-page cheat sheet. I have a little sample on the right-hand side here that really says, this is what we're trying to accomplish. Here's our basic service flow. Here's the gadgets that are going to show you if you're missing something, or if you're doing a good job. So the metric, the only KPI really that we're looking at is actually going to be our the SLA gadget down at the bottom. And you'll notice it doesn't even have numbers. It's simply using the colors so that we can see right now that of all the tickets that have not been responded to, they're all in the green. So responding to a ticket right now is not a problem. However, if we look at the res plan, the sample, the res plan has some tickets that have already blown their SLA. So somebody needs to get cracking on what's going on with the res plan. And the same thing with the resolved. You can see it gives you a very quick, very visual understanding of what's going on. Now, for us, it's really important that we're not just viewing information, but that we have the ability to do something about it. And I'm going to dig into that a little bit, a little bit further as we go on. So again, it's find those things that are going to prevent you from having excellent service. Tickets that aren't assigned, tickets that aren't responded to, whatever it is for you. Maybe it's tickets that the last update was the customer. I'll talk about that some more. Manage it down to 0.
Got it.
All right, so we talked about dashboards. This is a sample of a screenshot that we did a while back of one of our dashboards that we have up for the ConnectSMART team. And just to give you a little bit of an idea of your kind of how you can end up. And this is looking at several different numbers, a couple of metrics. We have some agreement metrics that we were looking at. We have some sales metrics that apply to different people. And then we have a couple items that are going to be the most important things that we look at in the ConnectSMART side, which is the customer responded and the new tickets and our customer satisfaction. So those 3 elements are really the most important things that we're focusing on. So we have this up in front of everybody. This is up on, I think, 3 monitors up on the wall. And we take it from having it up on the dashboard to empowering your end user. And that's a very, very important concept that we have at ConnectSMART. That is, if it will cycle.
Man, I'll tell you what, man, we live by these at our office. We live by these. You guys have all been to Academy, and you've seen the different screens that we've had in every single department. And me just being able to walk through and just glance and seeing everything at acceptable levels, or if they're not at acceptable levels, to at least know where the health is of what's going on has made all the difference in the world. Because it's kind of cool. Everybody can't always be wide open all the time. You know what I mean? Yeah. So it's kind of neat to walk into like my knock, and I'll see all the ticket levels are nice and great, and everyone's kind of in a relaxed state. You know what I mean? But if I didn't know that, I'd be like, hey, hold on here. Why are they just kind of chilling a little bit?
Right.
My mind's just like, God, I want them to work harder. You know what I mean? But in reality, I'm not paying people to work hard. I'm just paying for the results I want. However they get them, as long as it's ethical, is great. And if they can do, if a technician can get the results I want and only work an hour a day, he figured it out. More power to him, as long as I'm getting my results. And it's nice to be able to see at a super high level without having to engage in conversation, without having to run reports, to just see these popped up. Makes all the difference in the world. But what's even better is when our clients see them when we're running them through. They love that. Oh, man, it's accountability.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm going to skip through this really quickly.
The best thing was when we got.
Go ahead, Tim.
No, I was saying we'd have clients come through, like Alex said, and they'd get dashboard envy, and that was a great, when we're going through our sales cycle, that's always something we did, right? We're like, how do we get dashboards like that? I'm like, well, unfortunately, they're just for this industry, but it's a good, great way when they start, loving to that extent what you're doing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, and this was a couple samples. It was kind of funny. I was walking by. I noticed one of my guys had created all of his own gadgets on his desktop, and so these are not something that I created. This is one of our folks, really making it theirs and really turning our entire support process into these 5 gadgets. That's the entire process. And so we were actually talking about it earlier today about how much it's changed. He said, I wouldn't know what to do if I couldn't double click on my numbers to actually take me to drive what I'm supposed to be doing today and every day. And just a very quickly, we had a conversation with them a while back, and one of my folks was saying, I said, what's your goal today? We're following up on our daily huddle, and he says, 0 and 0. So that's our goal every day is you don't leave the office if we're not at 0 tickets that are new and 0 tickets that were last updated by the customer. So it's 0 and 0, every day is 0 and 0. And I said, it's great. We have the same goal. My goal is to give you a raise. He said, 0 and 0 it is. So it's, it's kind of funny that, Tim was mentioning, I think, so almost every day I'll get a little, a text message with a, picture of the dashboard sitting up on the screen of 0 and 0.
Yeah. Awesome.
All right, so I just want to hit one thing really quick on there. For us, the acceptance is really important with ConnectSMART. It's not just ConnectWise and the ticketing. It does cover ConnectWise and ConnectWise hosted. We have different tools that are available for both of those. We also cover LabTech in depth. So those exceptions can be, things where I've got a VIP customer whose computer is offline. Well, the next thing that's going to happen if I don't deal with that, or if a location's just gone offline, yes, it's going to raise a ticket. It's going to go through that whole process, but I want to know about it first so that by the time the phone is ringing and I'm picking up the phone, I've already seen the gadget, I've double-clicked on it, and I see that location that just blurped offline, and I can say, hey, it looks like you're having a problem over there. Is that what you're calling to confirm? Or, I've already got somebody on it, so I'm completely changing the that conversation that we're having with the customer based on having access to that information and having it in real time. And I'm not going to spend any more time on that. So really just to, to kind of close in on that, there's a couple of the rules that we live by. It is a journey. It's not a destination. It changes. It will change. It has to change or it's not going to be any good. We mentioned, it's your 1, not your 100. If it's worth measuring, reward it. And very, very important, it's the yin and the yang of every metric. Every metric has a good side and a bad side. Always remember that triangle that we talked about at the beginning, that you may be doing something great for the team that's going to kill the company, or great for one, maybe great for clearing tickets off the board, but it's going to really tick off your customers. So you're going to lose that satisfaction with the customer. They have to be engaging to your people. It does matter how they look, both to your people using it, as well as when your customers are walking in the door. And you have to be able to take action on it right away. So it's not something in the future.
Absolutely. Good stuff, man. You're exactly right. All that stuff is just, you know what? And guys, here's the thing. You don't have to go at this by yourself. Engage us. Engage Shane down here. Shoot Tim and Dan. These guys, everybody's here. That's what's so cool about the team that we've put together through partnerships, or whether they're officers of ARC or employees of ARC or Chartech. They will help you. You just got to ask. Reach out, man. You'll get as much engagement as you give us. It's pretty cool. You don't have to reinvent any of this stuff.
Absolutely, and they're great. I mean, take one walk through Chartech and you'll have no question about what they're doing. So, I did wanted to mention that we have a couple things that Chartech is really bringing to you guys today. This is exclusive for the Chartech partners. We do have an October special, so anybody who is signing up for ConnectSMART today or this month, you can use the coupon code of Chartech 1013. Or better yet, call your Chartech account manager, email Chartech. You guys all know your Chartech account managers. They are more than willing to help you out to where you can get started with ConnectSMART today. And we have a special that we're doing on what we call our Quick Start Pack, which is for those of you who don't want to spend the time, you don't want to download something and read the directions on how to install it. You just want to have that instant gratification yourself. Have one of our technicians, one of our engineers who working this every day, just kind of do it for you, and you can look over their shoulder and ask a couple questions. We'll go ahead and handle that for you, and you can use those coupon codes. Your individual account managers have those coupons for you as well.
Oh, cool.
And
awesome. That'll make a big deal because, man, there's sometimes we don't have time to do all this crap. We just want it to work, right?
Absolutely. And so we also have a special for Desk Director. And Tim, let me go ahead and turn that over to you to go ahead and talk about that.
Yeah, look, before I talk about that, I just want to back everyone up to one point that I said before, which is when we went through the process looking at ConnectSMART, I remember one of my guys on team, because you're an IT company, you've got guys that know SQL, they'd always ask me, Tim, look, why would we go and pay for Desk Director when we can go and write all this our own stuff? And I can tell you right now that we literally cut years and years off our learning by adopting all of the learning that the guys have already done at ConnectSMART. So it's actually a very small investment for the amount of IP and KPI knowledge that walks in your door when you get that in your business. And I can't iterate that enough. Now, we got...
Appreciate that.
Yeah, look, absolutely. I mean, it's just the way we made decisions, so I'm just telling people about that. The other thing, we got a bundling special. So if you're signing up for, you say, look, this whole KPI thing's blown up. We're spending hundreds of hours in our business, and we just want to get leapfrog that by getting ConnectSMART. We've got a really interesting offer. As I mentioned at the start of the call, I'm involved with a startup company out in New Zealand, an MSP, just like Dan's business, called Lancome, and they've created a product called Desk Director, and it's an advanced portal for ConnectWise, and that's what most people know it for. It's around at IT Nation last year, but what many people don't know is they've been working real hard this year, and they've created a brand new heads-up display for the people sitting on your service desk, and it overcomes a huge series of problems and time it takes to deliver outstanding customer service experiences. And we're working with Dan and a number of other partners in the industry as calls come in, as chats come in from your clients, as your engineers are working on a ticket, to realize the investment Dan's made in ConnectSMART and you guys are making in Dan and the ConnectSMART business to bring that information up right at the point your engineers need it. And we talk all the time about having all this information, and Dan's company's been able to get that on a dashboard, which is the first real iteration of getting information in front of people when they need it. And we're working in unison, in concert with a number of other companies, including ConnectSMART, to have that information pop as the engineer's working on the ticket. Imagine how powerful that is, getting that information up in front of your engineers, not just having it at a dashboard, but saying, hey, this is what you need to do on this ticket. So you're going from modifying daily behavior to being able to modify behavior on a minute or a ticket basis, or on kind of an hourly basis. Very, very, very powerful concept. Now, I'm not here to talk about the product more than I have on this call. This is all about ConnectSMART. But if you are a current ConnectSMART partner, or you are signing up for ConnectSMART this month, we do have a special bundle that we're offering for October. And that is, if you sign up and are current on both products, we're actually going to give you December's payment free. So we all know in December we've got Christmas and all this other stuff going on, and we figure that's a great time to be able to offer such a thing. So you will not pay the Desk Director monthly fee in December if you sign up this month and or sign up for the ConnectSMART, this ConnectSMART platform. So I want to encourage you to do that, give you some extra value. Go check that out, and we're working towards an integration that's just going to kick it out of the park between the two systems and across other platforms. Now, the way you do that for either products is to call your Chartec account manager. The number's up there on screen. Those guys are actually on standby now if they're not already kind of full of calls. Or you can order, you can email Chartec. Well, there's the link there to get access to that, and that'll be on the slides. I'm pretty sure you're going to get that after, right, Dan? You're going to send that out to everyone that attended the call. And that's a special just for October. It will not be repeated in that fashion again. It's super exciting, and we love what we're doing and seeing out of the guys at ConnectSMART. It's just a privilege to be able to come and join you on the call today. Hang out a little bit with Alex Rogers. You're a true genius, Alex. We love having you in the industry. You've done so much for so many people.
Absolutely.
And I'll hand back to the both of you and say thanks, everyone, for joining us today as we hand back to the guys running the call.
Awesome. Hey, Tim, thank you so much, man. It is awesome having you guys or having you speak at our academies and letting us see a different level from a super, super high level of what you've done and how you can bring all those cool things down to our MSPs and stuff. Gosh, we're blessed. We are so lucky to have you guys. Man, I'll tell you what, Dan, awesome, good stuff. We've been running ConnectSMART for a long time, and it keeps getting better and better and better, man. And again, your partnership is awesome. Guys, you don't have to wonder. I choose anything I want to use in my MSP. I have access. I have people throwing me free products all the time. Hey, use this. Just let me use this. Just put this. Just install this. Just tell them that you use this. I can use anything. I have all the way from AutoTask to TigerPod to Continuum to all these different people telling me that they'll give me their stuff, and competitors to everything. And we choose only the best, okay? And we figured all this stuff out. So you guys can just copy us, man. Come down, see how this works, talk to our people. Get it not from us, but ask them questions of the actual people that are using this front line and hear what they say. And what's so cool about it is they'll tell you certain things that suck about certain products. They'll say, oh, I like it, but I wish it did this because it would do this, this, and this, and this. You'll not hear just all the great shit stuff. You'll hear challenges. You'll hear everything. You'll get a non-biased opinion from the people that are actually using it. So anyways, guys, get on here. Academy, get down to this Academy, man. And you know what? If you've never been to Academy and you're not a Chartech partner, guys, register. We'll give you a, go to that chartech.net/ConnectSMART. We're going to give a ticket out and see what this Academy is all about. You can base your own opinions of why the thousands of Chartech partners that we have just live and breathe on our academies and what they learn, and bring in the leaders, the industry leaders, to very, very touchable to you guys to ask questions. So we're out of time. Dan, you have anything?
No, thank you very much, and really appreciate the time today.
Awesome. Tim, thank you so much. Dan, you guys are the best, man.
It's a
guys,
pleasure, man.
I hope to see everybody here shortly. Hit us for anything, okay? Have a good day.